Hello and welcome to the AI Ethics Now podcast. My name is Tom Ritchie and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Randeep Wilkhu. Hi, Randeep.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. How's your day going so far?
Very good. It's been a great weather here, nice and sunny.
Yeah, it's been lovely. I wonder, Randeep, would you be able to tell us how you came to this conversation and give us a bit more of a sense of your career today and other things that you've worked on, please?
Sure. I've been in the, I guess, tech industry for the last 22, 23 years. I'm originally from Kenya. I came here to study, did my degree at the University of Manchester, computer science, and since then been working for different organizations. Successfully managed to land in multiple startups. I worked as a venture capitalist for a few years, and during that period, I decided to do an MBA. That's how I got connected with, I guess, Warwick Business School. Did my MBA there, and then went back and started working for a couple of startups again. I decided to get more engaged with Warwick, so I've been a mentor for some of the programs there. I've joined a couple of sessions, online sessions, and some talks at Warwick Business School. And AI has been something that I've been working for the last, I would say, 8 9 years. So I'm heavily involved in all the developments, all the excitement that's happening there. And most recently, I guess the most exciting thing for me is I've also started my own AI company called Finden.
I wonder, with all of that experience and with all of the different places and spaces that you've worked, what do you see as the key characteristics of a successful AI entrepreneur or innovator?
Yeah, probably going to be a little bit biased on this one because I originally started my career as a developer, did my computer science degree, and then went straight as being started developing systems, etc. And then slowly moved into product management, strategy, investments, and then really now kind of building companies, helping companies grow. So my that technical understanding that I had originally has, I would say, given me that added advantage of being able to be heavily involved in actually the building of the platform, having a deeper understanding, of course, the having the business fundamentals and understanding what product you want to build. That is kind of, you need that as a basis anyway. But I think that extra know-how, the technical capabilities, has really helped me to kind of be more, I guess, integrated with the rest of the team and work much more closely. It allows me also to plan better. When I'm kind of discussing with the technical team, I know what I'm talking about, or at least I can at least involve in the discussion. And it helps me everywhere else as well. So whether I'm going for a business development discussion or I'm talking to an investor, I can tackle most of the technical questions that comes through. Although I'm biased, I've also seen it in the industry. I've seen it in some of the investments I've made as a VC and some of the angel investments as well. And then on top of that, of course, entrepreneurs that have been successful, they're relentless, and that really makes a massive difference. So I think that's something that I think, though, that the combination of all those different aspects really makes somebody a real entrepreneur, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that those characteristics that you mentioned, though, do you think that they have evolved or are evolving as AI itself is advancing in recent years?
I don't think so. I think we are still at the point where it's the combination of that still stands out in some of the entrepreneurs that have been very successful. AI is making it easier to develop things, so maybe you don't need to be that technical, but you still, I think it still helps you to be a little bit more technical. Like today, if we look at the industry, everybody's talking about some of the new technology that Claude or OpenAI is introducing. The new buzzword is MCP, but honestly, most people would struggle to understand what MCP does, for example. So I think it does help to have that technical understanding as well. When you look at companies that are successful, it's not about the idea; it's all about the execution.
How do you think we can foster an environment that helps encourage AI innovation in the spaces that you're talking about?
I think now, especially with AI, I would say because the pace of innovation and development is has accelerated significantly. So I think one of the fundamental things is really experimentation. Really helping people or really encouraging people to just try things out, and build, because things that used to take weeks to months to build, now you can actually do it in a much shorter time frame. So you need a shift in the way people develop things, work together, even access to resources. So today in Finland specifically, we are always tapping into consultants, even if we have to bring them for a day or two to really solve just one specific problem. Because today, having access to resources is so easy. as long as you kind of are willing to put that extra work to find those resources, you can always find people to actually help solve certain problems that you might have. So you can really now accelerate, the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And of course, networking is very important as well. To make sure that you are kind of innovating in that whole AI space.
Yeah, absolutely. With that said, are there any specific policy frameworks that you've seen that are, effective in supporting this type of AI innovation that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I do see, university, for example, the University of Warwick also has like an angel network as well. They have entrepreneurship courses. They have like a e-gaming sector. So I see a lot happening there, but I think they're still struggling with regards to the support that they really need to make that into a successful community or initiative. And at the moment, what's happening, I think, is although there's the right mindset or initiative to build some of these programs, the lack of support around them is what's, I guess, stifling them to kind of progress further. And I think that's a challenge. And I think that's where, whether it's government or businesses, they need to do more with, whether it's universities, etc., to really make this a success.
And I think it's a really interesting answer. And I'm thinking about your almost interdisciplinary role that you have, where you have a very clear role in the business world, and you also do a lot of work with the University of Warwick as a mentor and in other roles there as well. What do you see as the key things that the university could do differently to build this, I suppose, ecosystem that you're describing around AI innovation?
I think what happens is, I think universities start something with maybe some collaboration that they might have, but I think those fundamentals are not strong enough, which is why that support kind of either disappears or isn't enough for that program to scale. And I think when I look at, let's say, WMG at Warwick, I think that's a brilliant setup where they have a very strong basis, and the fundamentals are right for WMG to grow to something much much bigger, because they have the support, they have the capital, they have the network, they have the advisors, mentors. That all really plays along really well. While when I look at, let's say, some of the other initiatives, they've started with, let's say, one partner in place. There's a very strong intention to do something, but once they want to grow, then they have to now start looking for that additional financing, which kind of which kind of distracts them from their core business, and that's where they kind of hit a roadblock. And I think that's where I think, if whenever, I guess, some of these new initiatives start, if there was, I think, support from these businesses and government by default, right, and you use them to actually build those fundamentals in place, that might actually help some of these challenges go away. And I think it's the same thing that startups go through, right? Startups always build something, and then of course they have to start looking for funding as well, and then it's kind of hinders them from growing the business because it's distracting from actually going and raising financing.
I think it's a really interesting perspective about how universities perhaps need to take on more of that startup mindset that you just mentioned there, and how they go about doing that. Because obviously, universities have so many priorities, I suppose, at every given moment. If I think about my role, it's never as simple as, you have free time to be able to think about these things. And so it feels very much about trying to create a culture, I think, as you're saying, that would really help not just Warwick, but all universities begin to perhaps more intentionally move towards this space around kind of AI technology and building these innovation ecosystems.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think, at least from what I've seen with Warwick, is, they're bringing these more entrepreneur type of degrees as well, and I think that's fantastic because, again, I don't know whether I should say this, but when I look at some of the education system, I think it's very much outdated, and there needs to be more, I guess, real life work scenarios, experience for students to really really benefit. That's where I think some of the stuff that work is doing, I think I was pretty impressed, and I think that's the direction I think most of the education needs to go to, where you're really students are really benefiting from real life experience, building real life solutions out there while studying, as opposed to being purely theoretical, which doesn't really help much.
Yeah, and I think in my experience, I find that particularly on the AI module that I teach, that applied experience for students where These podcasts are things that we supply the students with each week so they can hear these conversations about the concepts we're discussing. It's not, as you say, an abstract thing where we're going to talk about innovation and entrepreneurship in AI. We speak to people like yourself to really understand actually what's going on here and how can students learn from that at the beginning of their career and then apply it throughout.
And if that can happen even before, right? Like my kids are doing their GCSEs and A levels, and I see the same challenge there. I mean, the stuff that they're doing even in the computer science course, I mean, something that they're never going to be able to use, because they're still working on that same, I guess, system that's kind of built 10 years ago, and it's not helping them, kind of, I guess, move with the times.
Yeah, it's almost like there's been a paradigm shift in what's needed, but perhaps not in how we teach it. And as you're saying, they're using things that are will be outdated or not usable perhaps by the time they reach that point of their career. I wonder, stepping away from universities for a second, what do you see as the main challenges and opportunities for businesses adopting AI technology? So, from your experience or from those that you've worked with in other businesses, what are those kind of major challenges?
I think AI is making us do things much faster. So it's making us a lot more productive. It's going to make businesses a lot more productive in all parts of the business. And that's what we're actually doing with Finden as well. We're really helping people move away from these workflows or defined ways of doing things. If you look at the industry today, data has always been an issue. We deal with data on a daily basis. So the reason why a lot of software companies exist today is because they are being told, okay, you have this data issue, let's force you to work in this specific way, and that way we can solve this part of the data, and then we'll charge you this much as a subscription to use this service. But today with AI, a lot of these issues that you have with data are kind of going away. So we have this flexibility, and people can now start working outside of these defined workflows to get the same outcome. So we're going to see a lot more flexibility. We're going to see a lot more, productivity coming out of companies. So it's very exciting. I think we're going to see a lot more collaboration. I think there's a lot of fear that people might lose jobs, etc. But I think what will end up happening is there's going to be more jobs that are going to be created, right? Because if I look at pace of innovation, now before it was a lot harder to build stuff. Now it's a little bit easier. So we're probably going to end up seeing a lot more companies being, incepted and produced as opposed to what we saw in the past, just purely because of the AI innovation.
And I think it will definitely help small and medium sized businesses probably compete in this space because you'll be able to speed up these processes and, as you say, work across different work streams.
And I think actually small to medium sized businesses will benefit the most because they can adapt to change much faster than large enterprises. Yes, large enterprises have a lot more capital at hand, but these small to medium sized businesses are more agile. They're willing to make changes to their workflows, their processes. And I think AI innovation is going to have a much bigger positive impact to these small to medium sized businesses.
I wonder, with that said, what do you see as the biggest misconception perhaps that businesses have when they're beginning to implement AI?
I think data and privacy is a big issue. I think by default, every time we talked, even though, I mean, what we've built with Finden is privacy first. But even though, as soon as we start explaining what we're doing, the first question comes is my data private? So I think that's one area where I think there's a lot of concern. And I think there's a bit of education required there. Companies, businesses that are being built, they of course need to take that into account by default as well, because that's going to become a bigger challenge, bigger issue. We are seeing in the market today, somebody's built, an AI avatar of Elon Musk or Randeep Wilkhu or whoever, right? And I mean, you can't tell the difference anymore, whether that's an AI version or the real version of Randeep. So all these issues are going to come, and I think that's where I think businesses and startups, need to take into account some of these challenges that I think are going to become bigger challenges as we kind of move forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what I found really interesting in preparing for this discussion was reading more about Finden. What gap in the market did you see that led you to create Finden? And how does your AI approach change how people manage their personal information?
Sure. I think so before before this whole phase of AI development for the last 2 years, what we've built with Finden today, what isn't even possible, because there was just wasn't enough technology or innovation out there that could really help build a really good solution. And the problem that we really had was today we're dealing with so much data that's sitting everywhere. Even if you just look at it at a personal level, I personally have 3 Google Drive accounts. I have iCloud. I have OneDrive. I have my WhatsApp. Half of my business conversations are also happening on WhatsApp. And then I've got Teams, Slack, all these different tools, right? So, the simple query of me basically saying, where can I find my NHS number, right? It's already a pain. So that was really the original problem. But at that time, search technologies and all this was, in its infancy, I would say. But now with AI technology, you can do a lot more. I can now ask the question, what's my NHS number? It'll go and find that document or that image that could be sitting on any of these different, servers, applications, etc. Extract the ID number and give it to you directly, right? And that alone saves me so much time. And these are issues that people are dealing with on a daily basis. So really, that's how it originally started. So Finden, the whole idea of Finden is, let's help you connect everything, and then really give you your personal assistant. And the personal assistant is supposed to not help you with just your data, but really help your business as well. And privacy is at the as the central at everything that we do there. 2 months ago, for example, I was at Warwick doing a talk, and one of the questions we asked the audience, there was like 500 students there. We asked the question, how many people are using ChatGPT? And everyone apart from one student said they're all using ChatGPT. But interestingly, everybody also said they're all worried about sending their dissertations or content to ChatGPT because a student in another university is going to get access to that data that you're publishing there. But they didn't have a choice. So that's how when we kind of think about Finland today is a single platform where you really come, you work with your data, you feel secure, and you can do everything that you can do on ChatGPT, but within that secure environment. So that's really the start of Finden. And then whether it's a student or a business, we can really now, because we can understand your data, we can now really help you start manage your business. So for example, simple example I always give is, if I want to do my accounts today, I go and subscribe to Xerox or QuickBooks, etc. And because those guys have defined those workflows for you that you have to follow. But now with AI, right? You don't need to follow those workflows. So on Finden in future, you'll be able to basically just say, do my tax. If I have all your data, then I don't need you to follow a specific workflow. I can just help you do your accounts, your tax, etc.
And that feels really exciting that you won't be limited to those really specific workflows. And I wonder from what you've said about Finden, going back to the university discussion we had earlier on, are there any specific lessons you've learned from building it that perhaps universities could or should apply when they're developing their own AI programs or initiatives?
Yeah, I think of course one of the challenges that universities have is they're of course uh, even more secure than enterprises today, from what I've seen. We've already got I guess an amber light from Warwick Business School to have one of the largest courses to use Finden as part of their course from September onwards. But the different hurdles we have to go through to get Finden used in that environment is those hurdles are much bigger than even a very large organization like PwC that we are even discussing with today, for example. So I think that's where I think universities need to also be a little bit more flexible if they really want to adopt AI innovation, etc. I think they need to be a little bit more flexible. But of course, they are also concerned about the fact that everybody's using these systems like ChatGPT to do their assignments, etc. as well.
Yeah, and I think the university works. I mean, I know at Warwick we have Microsoft Copilot is our selected AI that we work with. But as you say, if I speak to my students today, tomorrow, they would all say, "Oh yeah, I use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever." And it feels a little bit almost like a wild west of people just using what they know or using what they can find. And I think what you're saying about that more perhaps targeted approach from universities that tries to build in a bit more flexibility would really help from the student experience point of view, and just from helping to teach them as well.
Yeah, and it'll help them innovate more, right? Because if they're always restricted to use some of these systems, then how are they going to innovate? How are they going to know how good are some of these tools out there? So I think maybe there needs to be one area which is super secure, but there is another more kind of playground environment for students where they can go and kind of play around and do more experimentation.
And I really like your point about that playground approach. And it's something that we've tried to do on the AI Revolution module, where we offer students the opportunity each week to undertake different tasks and use AI for them and kind of evaluate that usage to give them that more critical perspective. I wonder, Randeep, though, stepping away from universities, how do you think individuals, businesses, and governments can work together to shape the future of AI?
I think government is doing a little bit more, but I think they need to do a lot more, because I think government is the one that fundamentally needs to support the whole ecosystem. Government should basically say to fund those businesses so that those businesses can take risks as well. Because I think you need, if you take the playground approach, right, you or let's say if you look at the VC approach, VCs are always looking for the best solution out there that has been validated, etc. But in the case of universities, you want to leave some room for experimentation, etc. So you want the government to actually allocate some funds for businesses, and those businesses are partnering with these universities where there is that kind of leeway of experimentation, using some of these funds to really kind of do that innovation. But if government is always going to be looking at only investing in those people or ideas like a VC does, then it's not going to give everybody the opportunity to learn. And of course, then government also needs to take a big step in terms of working with universities to shape the whole education system to make sure there's more experience coming in, more real life work type of experiences for these students as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a real emphasis on these different organizations and how that they can work together, particularly in a university context where my interest sits, about how we're training students and actually effectively using AI in how we teach, in how we administrate, and how we manage that experience. And I think what you've described is perhaps one of the next big challenges is where does policy, where does oversight, where does collaboration really need to happen for this to happen more successfully than perhaps it has already. I wonder, Randy, just to finish off, what do you think are the most important steps that we can take to ensure a more positive future with AI?
Yeah, I think collaboration and partnerships is probably the best thing there. I think make being able to easily connect with the right people or right businesses, I think can fundamentally change something significantly. Just last week, for example, I was talking to an e-gaming startup who is planning to build an accelerator, and immediately I thought about Warwick Business School because Warwick has a fantastic e-gaming community and center. And then on the business side, if you think about Microsoft would be a great partner for them because they are massive in gaming, and that's an area that they want to grow as well. But when they were basically discussing it, they hadn't even thought about this whole ecosystem that can basically help them immediately. So I think that's where I think when you look at what could have made that successful or that initiative at Warwick Business School more successful is this collaboration and partnership. And I think that's where I think we somehow need to figure out how do we actually bring this community of right people that kind of are coming together and openly helping, but also the government funding them and helping them so that they're not restricted as well to basically help. Because today I think that's what's happening. If I reach out to a business, they are to a certain extent restricted because they have their own business objectives. But if the government have given them, I guess, some funds to play around with, as part of the playground, then they can do more with the universities, etc. So that's why I think it's a combination of collaboration, partnerships, and the government.
And I think you're right about what's the incentive, for want of a better phrase, I think, for some of these businesses to engage. You mentioned about people coming in to be able to support universities. I think what you do in your role with Warwick is a really good example of that, in the way that you've come in, that you're a mentor, that you're, speaking at these different events and conferences, that you've joined us today for a quick discussion. So I think, it's a real model to be able to follow about how you've use that previous experience with Warwick and kind of come back and been able to offer and share your experience in the business world as a venture capitalist, as someone who's set up a business. I think there's so much, even just from this conversation that you've shared, that can be learned and perhaps needs to be implemented more across all the different departments and all the different functions that we have. With that said, thank you so much for joining, Randeep. It's been a really interesting conversation to have with you today. And thank you for what you do at Warwick. I think it's a really useful and helpful way that you kind of give back to the community of students and staff. But thank you so much. Really looking forward to speaking to you again soon, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Appreciate your time, and I'm gonna take up on you on the whole playground and get Finden for you guys to use Finden in your playground.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks, Randeep. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.